Rolling?
Yeah.
Good. Right, hi again. Right. We're back up in the playroom with a continuation today of the building of the puddleduck wing. Whilst you were away, I've managed to get quite a bit done, which I'll get onto in a tick. But as a quick amuse-bouche, which French expression, you can't really translate, yes.
That translates to a taste tickler.
Yeah, a tasty what? Tasty mouth?
A taste tickler.
A taste tickler, okay. So it's something to amuse your taste buds, basically. And here in France, it's something that perhaps in a restaurant you might get with an aperitif, which is just something to get your taste buds tickly, I suppose. But if whatever I'm doing here, sorry, just spat at you. Whatever I'm doing here doesn't tickle your taste buds, well, it's only a couple of ticks. So just have a quick look at this, will you? Yeah, I can wind the handle. Good. This is a little automata which I made by. It was on a website. Whoop, Mr. Paper Pino. I'll keep it by the side of the bed, just in case I can't go to sleep. I like that. Only took me about 3 or 4 hours to build. Just download the design, get it printed out, stick it onto a bit of card or print it onto 240 thickness card. Yeah, it's good. You can actually see the mechanism down there if you look at it. It's rather clever. I think it's rather clever anyway. Rather nice. Right, quick amuse-bouche. That's over. We'll start on the wing. Right, okay, as I said earlier, we've been getting on with the building of the wings whilst you've been away, and what I've done is produced, I think there's probably about 3 or 4 photographs which Harry will put up onto the screen as to the stages which we've gone through to arrive at what we've got today, which is the wing halfway completed. As you can see, we have we've epoxy resined in the dihedral braces onto the wing, and you'll see on the photographs how we actually position the wing to be able to do that. These are the bottom dihedral braces, not the top ones. Top ones we've still yet to go in, and they will fit there, one that side of the main spar and one the other side of the main spar, and they will be glued in, epoxied again, and then only after that will we put the top sheeting on. Okay, so the bottom sheeting we put down, we cut, glued, super glued together, cut the form out of the bottom sheeting and glued the bottom balsa spar to it whilst it was held down on the building board. We then tilted up the end of the wing and making sure that it was supported, we then epoxied the dihedral braces to the part of the wing that was pinned to the baseboard. Okay. So far we've managed to put in the double trailing edge. The bottom trailing edge, there's two bits to this, obviously there's top and bottom. The bottom bit was pinned to the board, as you'll see on the photograph, which we'll show you, before we started putting some spars, wing ribs in. Don't know why I kept calling them formers. I have a memory which is like a sieve, I'm afraid. So that the trailing edge was glued down, as I say, pinned down to begin with, before we put some wing ribs on, because the sheeting at the front and the sheeting on the back glued onto the top of both of those. Alright, I haven't done the right hand wing top sheeting yet for the trailing edge, although I've put in all of the sub spars. I haven't as yet glued the bottom sub spars onto the new side of the wing, left hand side of the wing, because that's difficult to get at. I need to turn it upside down to be able to glue those in. What I've done is I've put in a false, pinned and glued the false leading edge on. I will then form up the bottom sheeting to glue to that. I will, next job, make the top sheeting, cut that out, glue it together, and then obviously that can't be super glued. I can put some glue on these wing ribs and everything else where the sheeting is going to touch, and glue those down. That's the next job. What I've also done is to make the wing tips. Okay, they've not been sanded down yet or anything, so the wing tips will not go on until the leading edge has been glued on, and I'm not going to glue the leading edge on until I've got the top and bottom sheeting glued. Okay, these don't go on until that time, because we want to make absolutely certain that the leading edge of this tip is centralised on the centre of the leading edge of the wing. We bulk out this top part and bottom part with balsa and form it and shape it till it matches the rib shape. Okay, after it's been glued on. Right, I think that's about as far as we got. We have actually learnt a few things whilst you've been away. Well, one important thing, and that is how to focus the camera, hopefully. So it's I'll go into it later, not today, but it's a DSLR camera, just an ordinary photographic camera, digital single lens reflex photographic camera. It's not a video camera, so it doesn't have continuous autofocus, so that when you move it around from one point to the other, it doesn't change the point of focus automatically. So there's a little knob on the back, or push button on the back, which we're using at the moment to focus. So hopefully we might get a few better focused close-up shots. Okay, right. What just quickly, what I've done is I've added the shear webs onto one side of the wing so far. Don't forget that when you add the shear webs, of course, that it's vertical grain on the shear webs, and they have to fit absolutely perfectly. So that's obviously not extend above the top and bottom spars, because that'll ruin your sheeting. And they've got to fit up to the wing ribs exactly in the corners here, because that is the shear webs are glued to the wing ribs. It's an important part of anti-twisting on the wings, and so they're happy. Take your time about making them, and make absolutely. It's too easy to forget to put the grain vertically on those things, like I've done a couple of times. So make absolutely certain you've got your grain vertical, and he's trying to show you now the bits which I've done horizontal, which I have to take out and put in vertical. Well, we all make mistakes, don't we? We all get old. We all forget things. We all, and yeah, just makes life interesting, doesn't it? There's nothing else I forgot, I don't think. Oh, apart from... oh, yeah, no. I'll tell you what else I forgot to do. Right, this is going to test your autofocus, Harry. Can you focus down there? Yeah. Okay. Ooh, there we go. Are we in focus? Right, just leave it on that. Can you see that bottom sheeting on that centre section's a bit short? That was a bit of a... yeah, bit of a balls up, that one. So I'm going to have to just extend that out a bit to make it come out to the trailing edges of the wing sections, which are already finished to size, of course. What I'm going to... The wings are held on with rubber bands, okay? One of the things with rubber bands is that it cuts through balsa. They do cut through the balsa quite a lot. So what I intend to do is to get some very thin, that one, yes, the one, very thin ply, which is what this is. I can't even, that's off an old, this was off that, I can't remember, Depodusa, wasn't it? Bits I got left over. Never chuck anything away. What I'll do is I'll just cut out a small piece of this, a strip, maybe 1/2 inch by about 6 inches long, 1/2 inch wide, 6 inches long. I'll then crack it in two, cut it through but not all the way through, crack it and fit it at the trailing edge, and I'll do one identical for the leading edge where the rubber bands go over the wings to attach to the dowels which we're putting in the dowels which we're putting in the fuselage. This will be glued on to the balsa, not glued onto the covering. We'll glue this onto the balsa so that it gives the rubber bands a hard edge to pull against, rather than the balsa edges, which are going to be a bit flimsy, I think. So that's one thing I will not forget to do, hopefully. I did take the opportunity actually to put in some spruce, I think they're spruce, small spars at the back end of the, they're not balsa, they're 1/8. The difference in weight is fairly minimal, but the difference in rigidity is phenomenal. So I had some of that stuff sitting about, just hanging around doing nothing, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity to use it on this. 1/8 balsa is a bit like cardboard, isn't it? Unless you're using particularly hard balsa. So as I say, I've taken the opportunity to do that, just to beef it up a bit. And I've got to give some thought to beefing up the attachment of the wing tips as well. They look quite vulnerable. We'll see. Well, epoxy's on. Depends if you langed on your wing tips, I suppose, doesn't it? Anyway, that'll be all waffle today, and I think probably the next time this will be nearly completed. Alright, Cheers.